Yes.
It's right, is it?
It's right. It has certainly 5 or 6 years more development ahead of it. You see, it's now had 15 years in bottle, and this has developed the bouquet and the aroma, the taste of the smell.
I would be looking for fullness and roundness and a fine balance between acidity and sugar, which would give the wine keeping qualities, long life, and bring it to a point where it was smooth and round eventually when it fully developed.
This is Italian Chianti, which is beautiful red Italian wine. And
when you're tasting that, what do you look for in a good Chianti? What makes a good Chianti to you?
well, the body of the wine, first of all, and the aroma, the perfume, and also the color.
And what are you looking for in this particular glass
I'm
of
looking
wine?
for freshness and lightness.
There is, of course, a cult of wine drinking. Get a lot of wine experts together, and they use a specialist language, which to the outsider at least can seem pretentious.
There's a lot of pretentiousness, but it's not the fault of the wine trade. I think it's mainly the fault of amateurs who, if they knew better, wouldn't carry on like this. Because a fine wine is really a wonderful piece of craft work. You know, it nearly approaching a piece of art.
I'm always very conscious, sort of in the wine game, that somebody can go and be faced with a strange name of a bottle of wine that might be quite expensive, and which, in fact, he might be able to afford. But because he cannot pronounce the name, he's afraid to order it. I think there is a mystique.
Yes, and rightly so.
Why do you say rightly so?
Well, there's good wine and bad wine, isn't there? I mean, you find all sorts of beautiful labels on the shelves, but what's inside the bottle is another story.
But when people talk about wines as, say, gay little travellers or modest wines, I mean, are they talking a lot of nonsense? Do you even know what they're talking about?
Oh yes, people do use some pretty peculiar adjectives. I mean, you probably read Stephen Potter's One-Upmanship, and he talks about the wine having too many telegraph poles. That's a fairly good one. But, people do talk a fair amount of nonsense about it.
It's good business, of course, to sing the praises of wine, and Patrick Lechene of the French Wine Committee must sing them pretty loudly. It is, after all, his job.
Wine is a civilising drink. It helps you to enjoy life. It helps you to make friends. It helps you to know what the nice things of life are about. What's more, if you offer a good bottle of wine to a pretty girl, you'll never ask me that question again.
But why should I drink wine rather than, say, beer?
Well, it depends. If you prefer beer, I'm all for your drinking beer. Eventually you'll come to wine, because your friends will be drinking wine. So you'll just come to it.
What you're saying really then, perhaps, is that wine is maybe a little more civilized than beer, is it? A little more sophisticated?
I wouldn't say that, no. I would simply say that wine has been with us for many years, same as beer has. And I think you will find that in wine you have great companionship. And I think it's also the idea that wine is something that is done, apart from which I think it's a very pleasant drink.
Is it not a fact that there is more Beaujolais drunk or more wine labeled Beaujolais than is actually grown in Beaujolais?
I don't think so, no. It's an accusation that's made many, many times. It's often said. But then it's the same thing as a French turn around and say, surely there isn't as much whiskey drunk as made as there is drunk in France. The point is this, that wine in itself, Beaujolais, there's lots of it made. And I think you will find that we can cope with any requests, both here and everywhere else.
The wine trade in Ireland is changing. Marketing methods are being modernised. There have been mergers and takeovers of some of the old venerable firms. The supermarket has gone into wines, many of them in a big way. The old wine merchant, the man you could trust as you'd trust your stockbroker, still exists, but thinly on the ground.
Yeah, I think if you go back, say, 5 years, there was no such thing as the actual marketing of wine. I think basically the people at that time who drank it were people who had done so for years, and there were very few new drinkers at that time. With travelling abroad and modern marketing methods, there was a complete change, and with brands coming in, one has noticed an enormous difference in, say, the last 5 years.
A lot of wine that we sell is very, very expensive and cannot be used for everyday consumption. However, we are fortunate, as a lot of other companies are fortunate, in being able to sell value for money in branded wine, whether it be Spanish, French, Van Ordinaires, or any other wine from other countries.
If you're trying to market a branded wine, one obviously is the quality of the wine you're branding. And let's not make any mistake whatsoever. The public will not continue to be silly about wine. In other words, they will drink a wine, whether it be branded or non-branded, that they think is value for money.
Let's go into the shady recent past of the wine trade, where in Britain in particular, there was a bit of a scandal because of mislabeling. Now, can the wine trade here, or can the public rather, protect themselves from the wine trade and this form of shady dealing?
Well, essentially, in the wine trade, as in any other trade, any article you buy, you get value for money. If you want the best, you must be prepared to pay for it. But I would say this, that go to a reputable wine merchant, one who puts his reputation at stake, take his advice. If, having bought from him over a period of time, you're displeased with what you buy, I think you'll certainly change to another one. But if that man values his good name, he's certainly not going to indulge in the practices you've mentioned.
Would you agree with that, Michael?
Yes, very much. I was going to make one point that the difference in value between, let us say, something at 19 shillings and something at, let us say, 25 shillings can be absolutely immense. I think it's worth it indeed for a great many people, because one doesn't have to be a connoisseur to recognize the difference between a very ordinary thing and something very good, just as one doesn't have to be a gourmet to recognize the difference between a very average meal and a very good meal. I think that's where your mystique comes into it. All this nonsense about elaborate phraseology and so on is rather obscure that most people can, I think, frankly, really recognize the good thing without being an expert at all.
If I may give a technical tip, let the wine talk to you. Don't have any preconceived notions when you take a mouthful of wine, but sit back and be relaxed and in pleasant company and pleasant surroundings, and let the wine talk to you, and then you will get the message.
But what of the average, unknowledgeable wine drinker, the man or woman who knows nothing about wines but knows what he or she likes?
Normally I ask the waiter, and he's usually equipped to tell me what he thinks that I would like. I don't like it too sweet or too dry. Usually a hock suits me fine, which is mild, that's too dry, the first one.
Mm-hmm. You prefer this one? This actually is a
I do
Chene.
prefer it, yes. Mm-hmm. It's quite pleasant.
So you depend to some extent on the guidance of a waiter?
Yes, because I'm not an expert on these things at all. And usually to suit the meal, I ask the waiter.
And the man the average diner depends on is someone like Johnny Bacon, banqueting manager in a Dublin hotel.
So what you're going to do, Johnny, is decant that bottle of wine.
That's right.
Why?
Yes.
Why are you doing
this?
this?
The reason why we decant all old wines as such is because any of the old wines that has a sediment as such in them, we find after we pass the first or second glass as such, we find that the sediment comes forward and backward.
So you're going to get it in the glass?
With the result that it comes in the glass. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to do here is pass this over the candle.
What's the purpose in that?
So that I can see when the sediment starts to move. Mm-hmm. And then I must stop.
What about the
customers who come to eat in your restaurant, Johnny, do you advise them on what wine to drink, or do you sort of say white with fish, red with meat?
Well, this depends entirely on the customer as such. I mean, if a customer comes along and wants to order a particular bottle of wine, naturally we allow him to order whatever his palate feels that he should drink. But there is the customer that comes along and would like to be advised on this type of thing. So if he feels, or if he gives you the impression that he wants to be advised on it, naturally we advise him. I mean, this is what we're here for. This is why we're trained in this type of thing.